Hello, everyone, and welcome to another mini sky tonight. So, as we're starting to head into spring break, I know some of you kids are thinking, okay, my favorite activities are closed and are canceled. Some businesses have either closed down and or they've had such tight restrictions that it doesn't make any fun anymore. I get it. Right now, things are kind of hard for a lot of people, especially as we're coming on to the 1 year anniversary of having to deal with all this mess. I get it. It's tough, but just hang in there, guys. I promise we will get through this. But if I may present some options that you might consider while you're having to be stuck at home, may I suggest stepping outside with your family and taking a look at the stars and seeing some of these beautiful constellations on a nice clear night. So it could be something fun that you could do and check out, as well as, who knows, you might discover something new. So allow me to show you some of the things that you can see in the evening sky around about spring break. So let's turn around to face north. So the program I'm using is called Stellarium, and I'll leave a link in the description below of where you can download it. It's a free planetarium program that you can download onto your computer, and it's fun to interact with. It shows you satellites, it shows you planets, it shows you constellations, deep sky objects, and so much more. So I highly recommend checking it out, and they constantly update this program, and it's all for free. So I highly recommend it. So the way you move in Stellarium is you just simply click and drag, and you can see which direction you're facing. You have the cardinal directions right here to kind of tell you which direction you should face. So over here is this group of stars that many people recognize, with 4 stars that form the bowl and 3 stars that form the handle. This is the famous asterism known as the Big Dipper. Now note, I said asterism. It's not a constellation, it's a nickname for a group of stars because there is a bigger portion in this area that covers the entirety of the constellation. And this is what the whole constellation looks like. Yeah, as you can see, it's much, much, much bigger. It's supposed to represent the constellation Ursa Major, the Great Bear. I don't see a bear out of that. I mean, I've tried several times, but if you call it the Big Dipper, I'm okay with that. I sometimes call it the Big Dipper because it's easier to remember. So nonetheless, we're going to use 2 of the stars in the Big Dipper's bowl to find a unique star. I'm going to show you a technique which is known as star hopping, which allows you to basically take a couple of stars to direct you to a couple of different stars. If you take the 2 stars at the end of the Big Dipper's bowl and follow them in a straight line, you run into this star right here. This is the North Star, or its proper name, Polaris. It's a very unique star because what makes this star unique is that it never sets in the Northern Hemisphere. So you can stay up all night looking at the North Star and would never go below the horizon. So you can find it no matter what time of night. And the other great thing about it is the whole sky looks like it's rotating about the North Star. So just to give you a rough idea, let's do it this way. So you can increase time and decrease time down here. Yeah, those little dots that you see trailing along, those are satellites. So the program keeps track of satellites too. So as you can notice, the whole sky looks like it's rotating about the North Star, so it never sets. So you can find it no matter what time of night and no matter what day of the year in the same spot. That's what makes it an incredibly useful star. But it also gives us another important piece of information. Notice the gap between the North Star and the horizon. If you measured the angle of that gap, it would tell you your latitude here on the Earth. Currently, I have that gap set to 29 degrees, which is the latitude of San Antonio. So as you can see where I'm located here. If you were to take the North Star and put it at 90 degrees, like directly above your head, you would be at the North Pole. And if you were to put it at close to the horizon at 0 degrees, you would be at the long line of the equator. So the North Star is not only used for directions, but for your position, which why many GPSs use the North Star for navigation. Let's get back to the proper time just shortly after sunset. The great thing about this program is you can set it to whatever date and time you decide. The cool thing is so like if you wanted to check out what the stars look like on your birthday, you can set it to the month, day, and year of your birthday. If you wanted to, for you couples, to look at it, what it looks like on your anniversary or the first date on your first date, you can check out the sky of what it looks like on that particular date. And to do that, you just simply go over here to the left and it'll be the date time window. Nonetheless, once you find the North Star, the North Star is a part of another constellation. Its technical name is called Ursa Minor, the Little Bear, but many people call it the Little Dipper. And I don't blame them because I actually see the Little Dipper better than I do Ursa Minor, a little bear out of that. All right, let's turn around to face south to see a couple of other different constellations. Like directly up above us, you'll notice this famous constellation right here with 3 stars in a row that form his belt. This is the constellation Orion, the mighty hunter. The 2 bright stars in the constellation Orion, this one right here is called Betelgeuse, and this one right here is called Rigel. Now I said Betelgeuse. Now I know sometimes people pronounce it as Betelgeuse, but it's Betelgeuse. But hidden within the constellation Orion, if you take Orion's belt and kind of go down the middle of it, you'll see these 3 stars that kind of form a vertical line. Hidden within this group of stars right here is a really unique object. It's not this particular star, but allow me to show you what's around that particular star. So what we're going to do is down here in the menu, it says center on selected object. So it's going to center in on that area. And we're going to zoom in to take a look at this unique object. And what we're going to do is use the scroll wheel on our mouse to zoom in. Isn't this beautiful? This is a stellar nursery hidden within the sword on Orion's side. And this is the area where stars are being born. In fact, these little stars right here that you can see are baby stars. They're just a few million years old. You may think, oh, millions of years, that's ancient. But for stars, that's relatively young. Stars can live up to be billions of years old. So what's inside a nebula that can create stars? Well, what if I told you every single element on the periodic table of elements can be found inside a nebula? Because when a star is formed, a planet can form alongside it. So the materials that were used to create a star are also used to create planets. So with that idea, keep in mind, the same materials that were used to create our sun were used to create our planet Earth. So everything that our planet was made out of can be found inside a nebula. So we are but such stuff that stars are made out of. And I think that's cool. All right, so we zoomed out. So we just used the scroll wheel to zoom out. And if you take Orion's belt and go up and to the right, you'll see this V-shaped group of stars. This forms the face of Taurus the bull. Hidden back behind Taurus, however, is a really unique object. It goes by several different names, 3 of which are listed right here: the Pleiades, the 7 Sisters, and Subaru. Because Subaru is Japanese for the Pleiades. So like the Subaru vehicles that you see around town, if you look on the emblem of that Subaru car, you'll find these stars. In fact, let me show you what they look like up close and personal. Kind of recognize the symbol now? This is what is known as an open cluster, and it has a little bit of nebula. This is basically the last of the baby stars that were formed from the nebula that created them. But hidden within Taurus right here, you see this kind of orange star that's not connected to anything. That's actually the planet Mars. In fact, let's take an up close and personal view of this planet. That's what the great thing about this program is. It lets you zoom in on planets and take a up close and personal view of them. So here we got two of the moons, Phobos and Deimos. They're technically captured asteroids, but they orbit around Mars, so they're moons of Mars. Now, Mars is affectionately known as the red planet because, as you can see in this image, Mars is kind of like this deep red-orange color because it's a rusty planet. There's a bunch of iron in the soil on Mars, and since we've detected water, and it does have an atmosphere mostly composed of carbon dioxide, but still an atmosphere. So when you mix carbon dioxide or some type of atmosphere plus water plus iron, you get rust. That would be like taking a nail and sticking out in the middle of your yard and leaving it there for about a couple of months and then coming back to come find it. It will have rusted. This is what is known as oxidation. So hence why it has that deep red orange color, because most of the soil has rusted. And let's zoom out. Head back to Orion over here. If you take Orion's belt, instead of going up and to the right, let's go down and to the left. And you'll see this incredibly bright star. It is the bright star Sirius. So for you Harry Potter fans, Sirius Black gets his name from this star. So even J.K. Rowling took her inspirations from the constellations. In fact, some of her characters are named after different stars. I honestly think she took Sirius Black's inspiration a little bit further because Sirius is in the constellation Canis Major, the big dog. I like this constellation because it actually looks like a dog. So you see his like little head here, his legs, his tail, his body, and Sirius is supposed to represent his collar gem. I always enjoy that constellation. Uncompared to another, as we mentioned, Canis Major, yes, there's a Canis Minor. It's these two stars right here. I'm sorry, but two stars do not a constellation make. Call it a little dachshund, you know, whatever. I don't think that is much of a constellation, but whatever, I'll go with it. All right, if you look over here towards the east, you'll see this backwards question mark in the sky. This is a part of the constellation Leo, the lion. The bright star right here is called Regulus. So yes, even Sirius Black's brother gets his name from a star in the constellation Regulus right there. It represents the king's star. So you got the king of the beasts right there, so he gets the king's star. So heading back to Orion, if you take this star and this star, the two brightest stars in Orion, and follow them up in a straight line, you'll run into this constellation right here, which is signified by two identical stick figures. The two stars that are the brightest in this constellation recognize the name of the individuals. This is the constellation Gemini, the twins. And the two brightest stars in the constellation Gemini represent the names of the twins. This one right here is called Pollux, and this one right here is called Castor. These are the two names of the twins. So now you know. All right, let's take a look at what the early morning sky looks like. So if you have a couple of early morning risers, and if you have to go out and about somewhere or you're making early morning travels, let's take a look at what the sky looks like early in the morning. I know sometimes I have to get up early in the morning to help some of my friends or neighbors. So let's take a look what the sky looks like early in the morning, just before sunrise. Because once you look at the sky early in the morning, just before sunrise, you'll get to see 3 planets. So just in the early morning, if you look over here towards in between east and southeast, you'll see these 3 planets in a row. They kind of look like 3 bright stars, but they're actually planets. This one is Saturn. This one right here is Jupiter. And last but not least is the planet Mercury. So you can see 3 planets in the early morning sky. So these are some of the constellations and planets and things that you can see roughly around about spring break. If there are any questions and comments, leave it down in the comments below. If you have any suggestions or topics you would love for me to cover over, leave it down in the comments as well. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, never stop learning.